Jon Jones is, without a doubt, one of the most controversial figures in UFC history. From PED scandals and questionable wins to blatant Dana White favoritism, his legacy is as notorious outside the cage as it is inside. Jones's greatest opponent has always been himself, whether it's DUIs, criminal charges, or toxic behavior. This is Baked Takes, where we dive into the controversial stuff. Let's spark up and get into it.
All right. Well, we can talk about it in court.
Let's break down why Jon Jones might just be the worst thing to happen to the UFC. Bones has a well-documented history with PEDs, failing more drug tests than me, leaving his career under a cloud thicker than a Stockton gym. 2016, UFC 200. Popped for clomiphene and letrozole, aka post-steroid cycle meds. His excuse? A sexual enhancement pill. You can't make this shit up. USADA benched him for a year. 2017, UFC 214 sparked out Daniel Cormier, then failed for turinabol, an anabolic steroid. The win got overturned, and Jon got a 15-month suspension after cooperating with USADA. 2018, UFC 232, the pulsing saga. Turinabol metabolites showed up again before 232, but USADA shrugged it off, claiming it was just leftovers from his previous use. Let's just say certain commissions didn't buy it, and Jon had to take his talents elsewhere to fight. Jones has often fought fighters past their prime, or ones he had the upper hand over. He once tweeted about Reyes versus Jan for the UFC light heavyweight title. As of right now, I got nothing to really gain fighting either of them. Which, fair enough. If you're already calling yourself the GOAT, why fight someone who might ruin that narrative?
Jon.
This would continue to be a theme for Jones. After years of waiting, he finally faces Miocic in 2024 at UFC 309.
Y'all want to see me beat up Stipe?
Miocic, at 42, was coming off a 3.5-year hiatus loss, and Jones beat him easily by third-round spinning back kick and punches. Talk about a got-nothing-to-really-gain situation. Well, we saw why he prefers the older gentleman, when Jones faced off against Reyes, and devastatingly, Dom lost a decision. Many argued that the Devastator won that fight, but of course, Jones got the win. He's also dodged monsters like Francis Ngannou and Tom Aspinall, claiming the UFC wouldn't pay enough. He even tweeted stuff like, the UFC was unwilling to pay more for the Francis superfight, and stupid shit like, hopefully you guys will be willing to pay by then. Maybe he just wanted more money to fight someone who looks like they could easily smoke him? Jon's dominance over Daniel Cormier was as much about trashing his legacy as it was about winning the fights.
Back-to-back weekends. Cocaine one, your ass the next. It was great.
Those losses overshadowed DC's career, and despite being tarnished by PEDs, Cormier wasn't the same after this. Jon Jones' cheating has been as much a part of his career as his actual fights. One of his stupidest points of contention is his lone loss, his 2009 disqualification against Matt Hamill for illegal 12-6 elbows. At the time, the rule was clear. Those elbows were illegal, and Jones knew them and threw them.
There's been a disqualification of Johnny Bones Jones. Therefore, the winner is Matt Hamill.
But now that the rule has changed, Jones thinks his DQ should be overturned, tweeting when the rule changed. Undefeated then, undefeated now, we gotta get that loss out of the history books. Sure, Jon. Rules don't apply retroactively. But nice try, buddy. And then there's the eye pokes, putting Weidman to shame. Jones' reach isn't just for jabs, he's practically weaponized his fingers. Opponents have frequently complained about his accidental pokes, but Jon has made no effort to hide his intent, because, well, he gets away with it. He even openly admitted,
I do poke people in the eyes, and it's very illegal, but I do it. Now I'm kind of known for it. It's working.
What is even the point of rules anyway? Speaking of eye pokes, let's talk about the privileges Jon Jones gets, courtesy of Daddy Dana White and the UFC brass. First, let's talk about gloves. After Jones's return, the UFC rolled out new gloves designed to minimize eye pokes, more like minimize knockouts. But then, when Jon returned to the cage, the UFC suddenly decided those gloves weren't working enough. So, back to the old ones. Why? Because fighters have been complaining for a while, and Jones, being one of them, was about to fight again. So it was more convenient to bring back the gloves that allowed for more pokes. Funny how that works. Now let's talk about events. The UFC has also changed event locations when Jones pops, moving from Vegas to LA. But hey, what's a little change of venue when you don't have enough time for Nevada to find out the truth? They've made adjustments like it's no big deal, because for Jon, there's always a special kind of flexibility. Jones has been allowed to duck opponents whenever he wants. It's ridiculous when you look at things like the Tom Aspinall situation. Aspinall, who's the interim champ, was left hanging, while Jon still wants to fight guys like Old Man Miocic and Chad Pereira. Sure, Miocic is a big name, but what about the guy who's actually earned a title shot? And now, after all that, Dana agrees that the winner of Jones versus Miocic should face Aspinall next.
The winner should absolutely fight Tom.
Should. Dana, make Jones fight Tom or retire already. But of course, Jones makes it all about the money. He keeps talking about wanting that fuck you money, which to me sounds more like a need for a big payday before he takes a loss. Probably by knockout too. You get the feeling Jones is already planning his exit strategy. Maybe he needs the cushion of a massive paycheck before the inevitable fall. And if you thought his downfall was only going to happen in the sport, think again. Jon's been crashing outside the cage for a long time. May 19th, 2012. Jon's first ultimate burnout crash. Our boy Jon wraps his car around a utility pole in Binghamton, New York. A fucking Bentley, by the way. The police take him into custody after he refuses a sobriety test. Jon's fine, but his two passengers suffer minor injuries. He later pleads guilty to a DUI, gets slapped with a $1,000 fine, and has his license suspended for 6 months. I'm sure that taught him a real good lesson. April 27th, 2015.
Operator 3830, where is your emergency?
This time, Jon steps it up with a hit and run in Albuquerque. Driving a rented SUV, he runs a red light,
Anyone injured?
crashing into a pregnant woman.
Evan's getting out of the SUV. He took off running.
After crashing into her car,
He's running over fences. He's jumping over. Okay.
Jon runs
What
away,
color is the SUV?
but not before coming back to grab some cash from his vehicle. Priorities, right?
Jon Jones?
He leaves behind the woman, the scene of the accident,
There's cash in here. And they said, right here. Yeah.
and, oh yeah,
Where's that pipe at?
weed pipe with some bud in it. So we're not just looking at a hit and run, technically a DUI too. A real champ. Jon eventually turns himself in, because better late than never, right? He was given up to 18 months supervised probation, and will be required to make 72 speaking appearances. Not even a fine this time. I'm sure he'll learn his lesson, this time though. March 26, 2020. Fast forward to New Mexico. Jon is arrested again, this time for alleged aggravated DWI and negligent use of a firearm. Driving around in a black Jeep, shooting guns.
Did you just hear a gunshot?
I did it.
Drinking mezcal. No surprise he was pulled over. 5 days later, Jon pleads guilty to DWI. He was sentenced to 4 days house arrest, 1 year of supervised probation, a minimum of 90 days of outpatient therapy, and he must complete 48 hours of community service. The other charges? Dropped. Maybe third time's the charm. And when it comes to crimes, it's just business as usual for the GOAT. November 24th, 2011. Jones gets pulled over for driving on a suspended license. Nothing flashy, just the warm-up act. But let's skip ahead to the big stuff. January 6th, 2015. One day after being featured on Forbes magazine's 30 Under 30, list of the brightest young stars in sports, Jones sees his public image take a hit. The Nevada State Athletic Commission reveals he tested positive for cocaine metabolites before his fight with Daniel Cormier. And of course, Jon couldn't just leave it there. "I beat you after a weekend of cocaine," he later brags. Back-to-back weekends. Cocaine one, your ass the next. It was great. That's a month for the ages. Inspirational stuff. A week later, Jones announces he's checking into rehab. But don't worry, Jon makes a quick recovery. He checks out after just one night. "I'm not a cocaine addict by any means," Jones says, "or even a frequent user. I just made a really dumb decision and got caught."
I'm not a cocaine addict by any means, or not even a frequent user. I just made a really dumb decision. Just really got caught with my pants down in this whole situation.
Truly inspiring. March 29th, 2016. Jones is jailed in Albuquerque for violating his probation. The violation? A week earlier, he was cited on 5 charges related to drag racing. Jesus, what doesn't this guy do? And because Jon never does anything quietly, body cam footage shows him calling the officer
You are an absolute f***ing liar.
Well, we can talk about it in court. I need you to sign inside.
and a
sir.
pig.
Pig. Disgust me.
Once again, feelings mutual.
April 19th, 2019. Things get weird at an Albuquerque strip club. A waitress accuses Jones of roughhousing with her after being denied a private dance. She alleges Jon put her in a chokehold, kissed her neck, and touched her genitals. A criminal summons is issued, but Jones denies the allegations. Naturally, nothing sticks. September 24th, 2021. The day after Jones inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame, police are called to Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas for a domestic incident between Jon and his fiancée. According to police, Jones's youngest daughter asked security to call 911. Officers arrived to find blood on his fiancée's face and clothes. She says Jon was belligerent, pulled her hair, and that the blood was from chapped lips. Meanwhile, Jon is outside, headbutting the hood of a patrol car and challenging the officers to a fight, one he'd probably cheat at.
Hurt me and kill me. What did I do?
He's charged with misdemeanor domestic battery
A black man can't drink?
and tampering with a police vehicle, a felony. His bail is $16,000. March 30th, 2024. It's not just the police he's sparring with anymore. A drug testing agent from Drug Free Sport International files a police report. During a visit to his home to collect a urine sample, she accuses Jones of assaulting and threatening to kill her. Because if the police aren't off limits, USADA definitely aren't safe from sexual chocolate.
Jon Jones is the pound-for-pound best fighter in the world and the greatest fighter fucking ever. Period. End of story.
Sure, he's one of the greatest fighters in history, but only if you ignore the endless asterisks attached to his name. Maybe one day he'll find peace, or at least the truth about himself. But hey, let's take a step back and look at some of the good stuff. To see both sides, let's dive into some of Jon's good deeds that don't involve failed tests or criminal headlines. Jon has done charity work, including donating to various causes like homeless shelters and food banks in his hometown of Rochester, New York. He's also been involved in youth mentoring, aiming to keep kids off the streets and out of trouble, encouraging them to stay focused on their education and sports. Jon once said,
I think I am a bad guy that's trying to be good. Just because religiously we're all sinners. We're all sinners. We're born into sin. It's our nature to sin. And it's a decision to try to do the right thing. You know, it's a decision to do the right thing when no one's looking, right?
When nobody was looking, he left a pregnant woman, unaware of how injured she could have been. So, does the positives outweigh the negatives? Personally, I don't think so. But that's just my opinion, by joint decision.